Hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Oriented World Podcast. And I'm your host solomonokukuwafua. And today, being February 14th, 2022, as you all know, today is Valentine's Day. So today is purely women's sports, and that's what will be the focus of this episode. So I'm going to title this episode Women's Sports Valentine's Day Edition. Of course, don't ask me whether I have a girlfriend or not, because that is not something I'll not answer in public unless you go to my personal social media pages. Then I'll answer your question. But right now, just want to thank everybody who has followed my journey from the beginning, from the first episode to where it is right now. I hope you are you're contented, or you're satisfied, or you're well informed about what is happening around the sporting world. And of course, the purpose of this podcast is giving the latest sports stories from different corners of the world, but bring it from an African perspective, because I, as an African, love to bring things from an African perspective to be able to globalize uh, the Africanness or the Africanacity, especially in terms of sports excellence from different corners of the world, and just really give props to everybody who is a part of the African family, either a native or a diaspora, be able to be celebrated. And I love doing that because at the end they really deserve to be where they are today. So that's the whole purpose of the Sports Oriented World Podcast. And today, since it's Valentine's Day, today I want to do the usual 60 minutes podcast, because it's a special day. I also have to celebrate with my loved ones, even though I don't have my girlfriend or life partner. I'm not yet ready to reach there, but it will soon happen at some time. And so, even as you see me right now, I'm wearing the USF shirt, showing that this is the University of South Florida. And speaking of the University of South Florida, there's a player who I'm going to highlight and congratulate, because that person has achieved a lot. And since it's ladies edition, I'm going to highlight that person who plays for this university. So that's why I'm wearing it today. Be able to congratulate women in sports excellence, so long as they have an African background, either through her parents or grandparents, or from her ancestry. So that's my focus on my podcast on today. Sports oriented world. The title is Women's Sports. Valentine's Day edition. That's where I'll be starting. And the first story I want to highlight today is, of course, this weekend marks the beginning of the final round of qualification for the African Women's Cup of Nations, which are going to be held in Morocco. 12 teams are supposed to qualify, including the host Morocco. So meaning 11 teams are left. And now, instead of the 11 teams that are fighting for that spot, now there are 10. Why? Because according to the news, the news sources, the Harambee Starlets were being knocked out. These are the women's football team of Kenya, because I am from Kenya, and to hear that the Harambee Starlets have been knocked out without kicking a ball in either leg just goes to show that there's a deeper bad blood between the National Federation and the Global and Continental Federation, which of course I'm talking about the FKF on the national side, which are being suspended by the Ministry of Sports, which are now being led by a caretaker committee, and is now fighting against CAF and FIFA because of their handling of the sports affairs in the country, which of course have not been approved nor elected by CAF or CECAFA and FIFA. Ever since the caretaker committee, led by retired Justice Aaron Ringera, a few months back, it's been a stalemate for most of the affairs of football in Kenya, and now receiving the news that they have been knocked out without ever kicking the ball, according to the statement by CAF, which the news I got from goal.com just a few days ago. And looks like it's not good news for Kenyan football as a whole, because imagine being knocked out without kicking a ball, even though you are well prepared. Even according to goal.com, they said that the Starlets players were training ahead for this weekend's first leg, which is supposed to be held in Nairobi, and them being given that news or following that news online, I'm sure it's going to cause some head scratching, because they're wondering how did CAF come up to that statement, and yet they didn't consult them, they didn't consult the committee, since the committee is being you know handpicked by the national government, since FIFA and CAF and CECAFA don't want to be involved in politics, and so long as they have not been elected or approved by the FIFA Council and the CAF Executive Committee, I think they are not going to be involved in it. So the only way they can, try and be involved is say, hey, you're not going to approve anything that is outside of the mandate, FIFA mandate or CAF mandate, and that's how they're able to seal the fate. So the opposition, that is the Crested Cranes of Uganda, have now qualified for the African Women's Cup of Nations without kicking a ball. So it's very sad to hear that my national team on the women's side, the Harambee Stars, have been knocked out. And I'm sure for as many that are listening to me or are watching me, who are are Kenyans and are wondering why is this happening, and I'm sure most of you will say we are not surprised, because Kenyan football has been like that from generation to generation. Poor leadership or bad leadership, so to speak, or even corruption and many other factors which I don't want to dwell into, because I want to stick with the time that I've allocated for the show. So it's really sad that even things like this is going to cost them chances. It's going to cost them opportunities to develop football in Kenya. And even just recently, late last year, when you saw the Viga Queens playing in the CAF Women's Champions League, I mean, it was a landmark moment for the club. And even though they didn't go far in the tournament, so long as they play in the group stages, all of it being in Cairo from start to finish, and coming back home really proud of themselves, for the women. Ever since then, you are seeing some of these players, the star players, having signed to European clubs and furthering their careers. And then now hearing that the national team is being knocked out without ever kicking a ball, it's just saddening, it's sickening, it's really tiresome. People are tired of sad news. People want to hear the Harambee Stars ever qualify for the FIFA Women's World Cup, which is happening next year. Now the next focus is to qualify for the FIFA Women's World Cup, which is next year in Australia and New Zealand, who are co-hosting the tournament. And I don't even know if even playing any qualifier of any kind will happen, because until now Kenyan football is being led by the government led caretaker committee, and it's really sad that the issue between FKF and FIFA have not been sorted out, or even FKF and the national government have not been sorted out. So I just hope that they sort it out very soon, because especially for the ladies, they need such opportunities to be able to prove critics wrong, and at the same time get to develop their potential as footballers. So that's what is happening in the women's sports in Africa. So the first leg was supposed to happen this weekend. Sorry, not this weekend, on Wednesday, on the 16th of February, and then next Wednesday on the 23rd, that is where they're supposed to do the second leg in Kampala. Yes, that's what's happening in football. But the rest of the content that I'm giving you is all basketball. So if you're a fan of women's basketball, I'm sure you've been watching lately that the other day the Tigres of Nigeria have qualified for the Women's Basketball World Cup. Why? As you can remember, in the previous episode, I was talking about the fixtures for both Nigeria and Mali, on what's coming up for them to really have a chance of qualifying. And it looks like the Tigres had very convincing and positive results. In the second game they played in the qualifiers, where they played against France, very tight game, but they won it by slim margins. Now they won by 67 points to 65, And then in the final game of qualifiers where they played against the rivals Mali, they won also by a small gap, but this time by 4 points, which they won 73 points and Mali had 69. So it shows that they have really learned and performed better, but the games were getting closer and tighter because those points really matter in terms of qualifying for the main tournament. If you look at the table, China leading the qualifying group, qualifying for the main tournament. You look at Nigeria finishing second, where they won twice and lost once, and then look at France getting the last slot out of the four, having to won one and lost two, and then with Mali finishing bottom of the group, which of course the qualifying tournament being held in Belgrade. So just want to congratulate the Tigres for really working hard and now going into Australia for the main tournament, which is happening in September, late September, joining with the likes of Australia, the host, the United States, the defending Olympic champions. You have France, of course, China, and what have you. It's really, really, I'm really happy to hear that the only African team in the Women's Basketball World Cup is finally in it and not two. Either way, we still have to give props for what they have done. And if you look at Mali, the Mali women's basketball team, they are unfortunately knocked out because they lost their remaining games. So in short, they lost all the 3 games, but they played all of them in Belgrade in Serbia. So they lost to China by 20 points, which they lost by 64 points, and China them scoring 64 points and China scoring 84. And then on the final game, which they played against rivals Nigeria, the Tigres, they lost by 4. I think that was their best game that they have played in the qualifiers. They lost by 4 points, so they lost and they got 69 points. They scored 69 points, and the Tigres scoring 73. So I think that was their best game, their best shot they've ever played. But it was too little, too late since they lost the second game, whereas they were going into the final one, which was the third. Yeah, so that's the second news that was happening in the women's sports. And then the third story, as you're all aware, in the previous episode I was highlighting the players of African origin who have excelled so far in college basketball in the United States. Now, of course, being the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, whereby I was highlighting the best players of African origin who have been highlighted in different categories of awards. And I talked about both the men and the women side. Now, because this episode is all about the ladies, of course I'm going to dwell more into the women who have been highlighted or who have been nominated for different award categories or who are on the watch list. Now, if you look at it, I was looking at the award categories which were being put on the NCAA's website, and there are 6 award categories or watch lists. Watch lists are like the short list for a certain award, and then they have to break it down as time moves on, because the season has to move forward. By the time the regular season is done and the conference playoffs have to take place, they'll have to determine the winner. And so, yeah, out of all the nominees from all the award categories being published recently, I found out there are only 4 players of African origin being picked. And I want to start with Ashi Orosu, point guard from Maryland, who plays for the Maryland Terrapins. She's on 2 watch lists. One on the watch list for point guard of the year, and the other being nominee for the women's player of the year. And if you look at the highlights, if you watch the highlights of her college team, the Maryland Terrapins, she has really been pivotal in their quest to really reach the March Madness tournament, and she has put in impressive numbers individually, and she deserves the nods both for point guard of the year, which of course has the likes of Caitlin Clark, Hailey Van Lith, those critical, very strong physically and also very smart players. And for Ashley Owusu, I think to beat such young talent, I think if she continues the way she is and prove people wrong, I think she can win not only the point guard of the year, but also the women's player of the year. That is in college basketball. Then another player of African origin being given the props is Nyara Sabali, the power forward from Oregon, which they're called the Oregon Ducks. As you all are aware, the Oregon Ducks was the alma mater of Sabrina Ionescu, one of the disciples of the late Kobe and Gigi Bryant, who passed away in the helicopter crash little more than 2 years ago. Yeah, so Nyara Sabali, who is the young sister to Satu Sabali, who is a WNBA player playing for the Dallas Wings, if my memory serves me right. Yeah, so this is the younger sister. She plays for the Oregon Ducks. She also has put in impressive numbers individually, and even if you look at their team, she'll be one of the top 25 according to the latest NET rankings, which of course is being published every now and then by Andy Katz, who is behind that rankings. And she has put in impressive numbers, and even the team are really playing so well. Yeah, so she deserves the props. And me, solomonokukuwafua, as an African who loves to watch college basketball, both the men and the women, I got your back, and yeah, congratulations so far. Then another player being given props is Becky Mununga, power forward of South Florida. As you can see, I'm even wearing the jersey of the college that she's playing. University of South Florida, as they say, green, and they are known for being called the Bulls. So South Florida Bulls is the team name. And Betty Mununga, if you are listening to me or you are watching this video, look, I'm wearing your team. Even though I don't support it, but I'm a fan of college basketball, and congratulations on being nominated. I hope that as you continue being consistent and you bring in more wins for your team, then you have a higher chance of being the winner of that award that you're in. Now, both Nyara Sabali and Betty Mununga are both nominated for Power Forward of the Year. So congrats both of them. And then last but not least, Queen Egbo, center who plays for the Baylor Bears. You can remember very well on the men's side, where I was highlighting in the previous episode, that James Akinjo, the guard, was also nominated for the best player of the year in the men's side of college basketball, who is a guard. And now you have the women's version, where you have Queen Egbo, center, just for the Baylor Bears. And if you look at the recent highlights, where if you go to YouTube or you go to our social media handles, she has really put in good numbers. And even the team is one of the best in college basketball. If you look at the rankings, if you go to the NCAA's website, she really deserves to be called for that award. And if she can continue that way, then she's going to go very, very far, so to speak. Yeah, so Ashi Orosu of Nigerian origin, Nyara Sabali of Gambian origin, Betty Mununga of Congolese origin, the DR Congo side, and the Queen Egbo of Nigerian origin. So congratulations to the four of you. If you're watching me or listening to me, congratulations once again. As from Solomonokukuwafua, a podcaster who loves to watch college basketball, both the men and the women, you have a shout out from me. And I hope that you continue being yourself. Make sure that you be the champion, or even qualify for the March Madness, because I guarantee you, now that women's basketball tournament has been rebranded and has been expanded to 68 teams, I'll be looking out for the players of origin who are going to be playing in the big dance, so to speak. And then the last topic I want to discuss, which I will not take much, is of course the WNBA has received massive capital raise from investors, and now, as a property of the NBA, they are now worth $1 billion for the first time. And as you're all aware, the WNBA is the biggest women's sports professional league in the entire world. Whether it is revenue, whether it is attendance, whether it is sales, whether it is caliber of players. I mean, the WNBA is just on another level. And despite having 12 teams, then I think the smaller the better for them. That's how I see it. And I've just written according to my notes, I've seen there are around 11 women who are part of that, who are part of the investor pool. And this comprises of owners, former owners, and of course former players and current players. Now, in that list where women have been included is Swing Cash, the former WNBA player, Susan Dell, the wife to Michael Dell, one of the richest men in the world, who are both also the minority owners of the San Antonio Spurs. You have Karen Finneman, Ginny Gilder, the current Seattle Storm player. You have Whitney Johnson, the wife to Jimmy D. Haslam, who of course both of them as a couple own both the Columbus Crew of the MLS and the Cleveland Browns of the NFL. You got Linda Henry, the wife to John Henry, who also owns the Boston Red Sox and Liverpool Football Club, and also Fenway Racing of NASCAR. You got Lauren Powell Jobs, who is the minority owner of Monumental Sports and Entertainment, which of course the majority owner is Ted Leonsis, who owns the Washington Capitals and the Washington Wizards. So she has minority stake in that company, and that means she owns minority in both teams. Then you have Heather Muren, who are all part of the ownership group that formerly owned the Las Vegas Aces and is now being owned by the Las Vegas Raiders of the NFL. Then you have Condoleezza Rice, the former U.S. Secretary of State. You got Angela Ruggiero, and last but not least, Clara Shai, the wife to George Shai, who both of them own BSC Global. BSC Global is a sports conglomerate of teams and entertainment companies that either they ventured or invested or launched. And of course, they are famously known for owning the Brooklyn Nets, the New York Liberty, its G League team, and of course the 2K League team. Yeah, so those are the 11 women who are part of the investor pool that are put in capital for the league. And I'm sure even if you look at the article according to WNBA.com, it's all for the purpose of globalization of the league. It's all for the purpose of expansion, if they want to add more teams in different corners of the country. And last but not least, give more opportunities to players who are from the developing world, especially in Africa. And I believe that if maybe they want to think of starting another league in a different continent like the way BAL did for the NBA, and I think that would be something worth discussing. And yeah, that's a wrap for today, and that's the episode of the sports oriented world, being the Valentine's Day edition. And today is all about women's sports, and just want to show some love to all the women I've mentioned here for the NCAA women's basketball, and of course all the people involved in the capital race for the WNBA. Continue to do so. Continue to advocate for women's sports. Don't give up. Don't listen to the haters, and you'll see yourself being a pioneer and a trailblazer for generations to come. So that's it. My time is well fast spent. Don't forget to comment, to share, like, and subscribe, and show me some love. Since it's Valentine's Day, I want you to show me some love. As you do so, I'll show you love in return, because this is a win-win situation. I'm doing this for all of you to make sure that you're well informed, entertained, and have something to discuss with your loved ones. Otherwise, thank you for being a part of the podcast. Get it on the different platforms, which I'll share it as soon as the video is done, and you'll be blessed. Otherwise, have a great day from wherever you are around the world.